installations on Wednesday. The conflict has significantly reduced the country's oil output. Meanwhile, a diplomatic war is also being waged. Senior representatives from Gaddafi's government have been sent to Egypt, Portugal and Belgium on a series of diplomatic missions whose objective remains unclear. Meanwhile, violence in Egypt is being blamed on loyalists of the ousted President Hosni Mubarak. Hundreds of people with sticks and knives clashed with pro-democracy activists in Cairo's Tahrir Square on Wednesday. And let's bring you some details of the latest activity in Libya, where heavy fighting has been going on. The pro- and anti-Gaddafi forces tried to claim and reclaim some territory around the country. All of it having an impact also on the country's oil output, which is now down by at least a third. In Ras Lanuf, the forces loyal to Gaddafi were bombing the oil installations, including a pipeline and a storage facility, filling the air around the region with plumes of smoke and flame. In AlJazeera, meanwhile, rebels say they have now retaken control of that city. This after pro-Gaddafi forces were seen celebrating here. Either way, heavy bombardment from the air and on the front line on Wednesday has led to some of the fiercest fighting yet. Doctors say that dozens of people have been killed. In the northern coastal port city of Bin Jawad, rebels have reportedly not been able to hold off the Libyan troops any longer. However, they've been pushed back by a heavy attack from the sea. Well, it seems that Gaddafi's forces have become much more aggressive in the recent days. Government troops using heavy weaponry and airstrikes to pound the rebel positions. Tony Birdley reports now from AlJazeera, which is still under rebel control.
If it was deliberate, the attack on the oil refinery depot in Ras Lanuf shows a worrying trend and escalation, and is bringing home the fears of many people here that Gaddafi will unleash his air force and destroy the oil and gas installations in the area. Fortunately, this was only an oil storage depot, but if it was the gas installation complex, which is not far away, then it would be far worse scenario. Thousands of people would be killed when toxic gases would be released into the air. So it's a very, very worrying time for people here. But it's showing also that the front lines here are very fluid. We understand from the government sources that they're claiming they've taken the Bin Jawad area back. The opposition forces say they still have it. Very confusing to get an accurate handle on what is going on. But there is confusion, but there is also ultimate determination from the opposition forces. They're still massing no matter what. They are intent on going down that road and progressing as far as possible. And even if that means their death, they're very committed to this situation. We tend to think that maybe things are going on behind the scenes. There may be talks going on in secret to try and get a peaceful solution, because we haven't yet seen Gaddafi unleash the full might of his force. We know that 200 kilometers away in Sirte, his stronghold, there's high-tech weaponry and there are 4,000 well-trained men. He hasn't used them yet. We're seeing every single day the Air Force in action dropping 2 or 3 bombs, but largely these are missing their targets. So we're asking the question, are the pilots deliberately doing that, or are they just sending a warning signal? We don't know. It's a very confusing situation. It seems to be more confused by the day.
Well, Khairi Fawzi is one of the rebel fighters. He spoke to us on the outskirts of Ras Lanuf about what's been going on there.
Right now I'm standing 11 kilometers past Ras Lanuf, near the oil port of Sidra. It's like a massacre here. We have nothing to resist them. We need help. We're just civilians. Even the rebel army didn't join the fight. Gaddafi bombed us from the air and blew up the oil fields. The Gaddafi fighters bombed the oil field in Sidra. There were 4 killed today and 41 injured, and there are people still missing, especially near the front lines, near the frontier with Bin Jawad. Right now, things are calm. We're collecting the dead and wounded. We're collecting body parts. We found the dead torn apart, and the injuries to those that survived are very critical. There are still some missing near the front lines. We're okay from the east. We have open lines of support and communication. We have food and supplies reaching us. The only thing is they bombed the water plant near Ras Lanuf, and that entire residential area hasn't had any water since yesterday. The only military supplies reaching us are light weapons, rifles, light mortars. We're very much outgunned. They have tanks, rocket launchers, but we have a stronger weapon, and that is our faith.
Well, even as he was stepping up the military offensive, Gaddafi has been launching a diplomatic one as well. Government representatives have been sent to Belgium, to Portugal and to Egypt, where Libya's deputy defense minister is hoping to meet Egypt's military council and the Arab League. Meanwhile, the question of whether to impose a no-fly zone is at the top of the international community's agenda. NATO's defense ministers will discuss the situation in their regular meeting in Brussels on Thursday. The bloc said on Wednesday it's not looking to intervene militarily, but it is ready to respond if needed. Also in Belgium, the EU's foreign affairs representative will hold a working lunch to discuss the Libya uprising, and France's President Nicolas Sarkozy is due to meet envoys of the rebel National Council in Paris in the coming hours. And many of the Western nations have long been considering a no-fly zone to try to stop Gaddafi's forces from bombing the rebels from the air. But NATO sources have told AlJazeera that NATO has no plans to intervene. Barnaby Phillips has more.
A no-fly zone over Libya's skies, enforced above all by America's military might. It sounds simple: fighter jets, monitoring or AWACS aircraft, and electronic surveillance to stop the Libyan Air Force from bombing rebel forces or civilians. In practice, it may not be so simple.
An abstract no-fly zone, when you're just simply not allowing military aircraft to not pass through, that doesn't actually help prevent bloodshed on the ground. So a no-fly zone without it being coupled by military strikes is quite futile.
Information on Libya's air defences is hard to come by, but according to recent research by one analyst, there are some 30 surface-to-air missile sites, most on the heavily populated coast. So how do you hit them without risking civilian casualties? And what about the history of these operations? During the first Gulf War, a no-fly zone was created in northern Iraq. Later, it was extended to the south. It helped protect Kurdish and Shia populations from Saddam Hussein's air force. Then a no-fly zone was established in Bosnia. It restricted Serbian forces, but didn't prevent the killing of 8,000 people in the Srebrenica massacre. There are political as well as practical problems. At the UN, Russia and China are wary of deeper involvement, whilst after the fiasco of the Iraq War, some Western military planners are cautious.
NATO is definitely not looking to intervene in Libya. We have asked our military to conduct necessary planning to be prepared for all eventualities, but we have not taken any operational decision.
Western countries will want to know how much support there is for a no-fly zone in the Arab world, and defence chiefs will be warning that even a supposedly limited operation can have unpredictable consequences. Barnaby Phillips, Al Jazeera.
Well, joining me on the phone now is Khalid Kwafi. He is in Libya. He was last night in the town of Bin Jawad, where some of the fighting was going on. Khalid, thanks for being with us. Tell us exactly where you were last night and what you saw.